She smiled like nothing had happened, like our love was still real. But when I slid those photos across the table, her smile froze. You should have seen her eyes. That was the moment I realized. The woman I'd built my life around had already destroyed it. This dinner wasn't for love, it was for truth. Before I tell you how I exposed her, hit that like button and subscribe, because trust me, this story is going to make you rethink what love really means. I remember stepping into the restaurant that night, the one where we had celebrated our first anniversary. The lights were soft, golden, and flickered just enough to make everything feel alive, almost magical. The smell of fresh flowers mixed with the subtle scent of candles. And for a second, I let myself breathe in the nostalgia. Let myself remember how it used to feel, before the cracks, before the whispers of doubt. I'd chosen this place carefully, every detail meant to remind her of us, to remind me of what I thought we were. Leona was already there, sitting across the table, her dress flowing in a way that caught the light just right. She smiled. That smile that used to make my chest tighten with joy. The one that had convinced me that everything would always be okay. But something in her eyes was different tonight. It wasn't just the usual spark, the usual warmth. It was practiced, like she had learned to put it on for appearances. Her laugh sounded a little too high, a little too polished, and I felt it in my bones. Something was off. My chest tightened, and I tried to shake it off. I was telling myself I was imagining things, that love always has these small uncertainties. But deep down, a quiet suspicion had been growing for weeks, gnawing at me like a shadow I couldn't see, but could feel. The late nights, the secretive texts, the sudden excuses that never quite added up, they weren't just coincidences anymore. I'd tried to ignore them, tried to convince myself that trust means giving someone space, that love means believing even when your heart whispers doubt. But tonight, the air between us felt heavy, loaded with things unsaid. I wanted to reach out and touch her hand, to feel that familiar connection, but I hesitated. There was a tension I couldn't ignore, a quiet warning beneath her polite conversation. Somewhere between the appetizers and the first sip of wine, I realized this anniversary wouldn't be like the others. This one wasn't just about love. This one was about truth, and I was about to uncover it in the most unforgettable way. I remember the early days like they were yesterday. How we'd wake up on weekends, sunlight spilling through the blinds, and she'd curl up beside me, soft hair brushing my arm, whispering silly things that made me laugh before I even fully opened my eyes. Our first vacation together, hiking to that hidden waterfall, getting lost on purpose just to spend extra hours in each other's company. It felt like we were the only two people in the world. Every small gesture, every shared secret, every late-night conversation felt sacred. I truly believed we were building something untouchable, something eternal. And then the cracks began, subtle at first, almost imperceptible if I'd been willing to ignore them. She'd come home a little later than usual, brushing off my questions with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her phone, once an open book, became a fortress face down on the table. Buzzing quietly, messages deleted in moments I wasn't watching. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself that love means trust, that marriage is about patience. But the little things piled up, like grains of sand filling a jar until it was too heavy to carry. I remember the first time I felt that cold spike of suspicion. She laughed at a message and quickly tucked her phone away. My heart clenched in a way I didn't understand at first. I asked casually, "Everything okay?" She smiled a little too brightly, said yes, and moved on. But I couldn't. Something inside me shifted that day. A quiet awareness that maybe, just maybe, not everything was as perfect as it seemed. The realization came slowly, painfully. The hotel stays for work trips that were never really work. The moments when she seemed distant while pretending to be present. The small lies that piled up like an invisible wall between us. Every memory I clung to suddenly felt tainted, every laugh a little hollow. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to admit that the woman I loved more than anything could betray me so completely. But deep down, I knew the truth was waiting, like a shadow following us into every moment of our marriage. And that night, walking into the restaurant for our 5th anniversary, I knew the shadow had finally caught up with us. It started like any ordinary evening. I was at my desk, pretending to focus on work, when a notification popped up. A photo from a corporate event I hadn't attended. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then my eyes caught something familiar in the background. There she was, Leona, laughing, leaning closer than a colleague should ever lean. And next to her, him, Hale, her coworker. My stomach dropped. I froze, staring at the image like it was a puzzle I didn't want to solve, but had no choice but to. The zoomed-in shot told a story words never could. Hands brushing, shoulders pressed, eyes locked in a way that belonged to people in love, not coworkers. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, that I was overreacting. But there was a seed of doubt now, dark and insistent, taking root in my chest. That night, sleep was impossible. Every detail of our marriage flashed before me, and suddenly the subtle changes, the long nights, the whispered excuses, the just a coworker lies, all came into sharp, undeniable focus. I didn't confront her immediately. I needed proof, not suspicion. I reached out to someone I trusted, discreet and professional. Over the next week, photos arrived, each one a dagger to my chest. Hotel rooms where she and Hale laughed too closely, hands entwined in the shadows of a parking lot. And then, the one that broke me completely. A kiss in the backseat of my car. The car I had gifted her on our anniversary the year before. The car we had driven on vacations, shared late-night drives, confessions of love whispered in its confines. That was where the truth revealed itself with brutal clarity. Anger surged, pure and hot. But underneath it was something sharper, disbelief. How could someone I trusted with my life, my soul, betray me so completely? The betrayal wasn't just a moment. It was a pattern, deliberate, calculated, and hidden in plain sight. My heart ached, not just for what she had done, but for how icily I had been blinded by love. By the time our anniversary arrived, I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a man armed with truth, ready to face the woman I loved and expose every lie she had built around us. That dinner would no longer be about celebration, it would be about revelation. After I saw the photos, I realized I couldn't go back to being the man who blindly trusted. I couldn't pretend anymore that everything was fine while the woman I loved was living a lie behind my back. Pain was sharp, hot, and constant, but I knew I had to channel it, turn it into something purposeful. Revenge in its raw form wasn't my goal. Justice, clarity, and truth were. That's when I started planning. I printed the photos, each one crisp and undeniable, and placed them in a thick envelope, the kind of envelope that demanded attention the moment it touched a table. I booked the same restaurant where we had celebrated the first spark of our love, where our vows felt sacred and the world seemed to belong only to us. I wanted her to feel the weight of our history, the irony of our betrayal unfolding in the place that once celebrated love. I didn't rush. Every detail mattered. I chose the suit she once gifted me, a color bright enough to stand out, but subtle enough that it didn't scream for attention. I rehearsed nothing, said nothing. The truth would speak louder than words. Every heartbeat felt like a drum counting down to the moment the mask would fall. I imagined her walking in, elegant and confident, smiling as though nothing had changed. That smile, once my favorite thing in the world, would be the first thing to shatter. I reminded myself over and over, this wasn't about shouting, slapping, or hurting. It was about holding up a mirror to her actions, letting her see herself as clearly as I did. I was calm, almost eerily so. My hands didn't tremble when I touched the envelope. My voice didn't waver when I rehearsed my lines in my head. Pain had turned into purpose. Every injustice, every lie she had spun, was a step leading to this night. By the time I arrived at the restaurant, my mind was sharp, every nerve alive. The table was set, the lights warm, the world around us oblivious. And yet in that moment, nothing outside mattered. Everything would change once the envelope moved across the table. Love, trust, and betrayal would collide. The stage was ready, and I was ready to let karma play its part. She was already there when I arrived, sitting elegantly at the table, her posture perfect, her smile effortless. It was the smile I once chased, the one that used to make my heart race without warning. Tonight, though, it felt like a mask, a performance rehearsed to perfection. She greeted me warmly, "Happy anniversary, Callum," as if everything was normal, as if nothing had changed. I returned the smile, calm and collected, letting the bitterness simmer beneath the surface. We started with small talk, light, polite, meaningless words filling the air, while my mind replayed every lie, every stolen glance, every hidden touch. She spoke about vacations we might take, plans to renew vows, the dreams we'd shared. Each word felt like a blade, twisting deeper. I sipped my wine slowly, letting the silence stretch, letting her fill it with her practiced charm, letting her think she was in control. The waiter brought the first course, and I noticed the way she adjusted her hair, the way her fingers lingered on the glass. It was all too familiar, too intimate with someone else. I remembered the photos, the laughter, the stolen kisses. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice calm. My hands rested lightly on the table, the envelope concealed in my sleeve, heavy with every piece of truth she had tried to bury. Then I said it, soft but deliberate. "You look beautiful tonight, Leona. Almost as beautiful as you did." In that hotel room? Her fork froze midair. Her eyes widened, the mask faltering. I slid the envelope across the table. The weight of it felt like a physical blow. She opened it slowly, as if the suspense could somehow make it disappear. And then it hit. The photos undeniable, intimate, shattering the illusion she had built around us. She stuttered, voice trembling. Where did you get these?" I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. "Truth has a way of finding its own path," I said calmly. Her face went pale. Her hands shook. The smile, the confidence, the lies, all of it vanished in seconds. And in that moment, I realized I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to fight. The truth alone was louder than anything I could have said. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the envelope. Each photo, a hammer striking at the illusion I had once clung to. I watched her carefully, keeping my expression neutral, letting the truth do the work my voice never could. The first photo made her lips part in shock. The second photo caused her hands to shake so violently she almost dropped it. And the last one, the kiss in my car, her eyes widened, and for a moment, the woman I thought I knew vanished entirely. She tried to speak, voice barely audible over the hum of the restaurant. "Callum, where did you get these?" Her words were sharp, desperate, but fragile. I leaned back slightly, letting her panic grow, letting her see the magnitude of her own actions laid bare. "Truth has a way of finding its own path," I said softly, calm but cutting, like a blade hidden in silk. The restaurant around us seemed to fade. All I could see was her, trembling under the weight of every lie she had told. She tried to recover, laughter that was meant to mask fear spilling out awkwardly, shaking her head as if disbelief could erase the images. But it couldn't. She reached across the table, voice rising, pleading. Demanding explanations I had none to offer because the explanation was there in front of her eyes. The betrayal wasn't hidden anymore. It had a face, a time stamp, and a truth that screamed louder than her denials. Then, in frustration and rage, she lashed out, striking me across the cheek. The slap stung physically, but nothing compared to the wound she had inflicted on my trust, my heart, my life. I didn't move. I didn't retaliate. I simply sat there, letting her unravel, letting the truth consume her as it had consumed me, only in reverse. Every gasp, every tear, every quivering breath told me she finally understood the gravity of what she had done. And in that silence, the moment stretched infinitely. I realized revenge isn't in the hit, the yell, or the fight. Revenge is in clarity. Revenge is in truth. And tonight, she had everything she deserved. Her smile, once so radiant, was gone. Walking out of the restaurant that night, the cool air hit me like a wave. Rain had started to fall, soft at first, then steady, washing over the city streets. I didn't rush, didn't run. I let the rain soak into my coat, into my hair, into the emptiness that had once been filled with love and trust. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt something settle inside me. Not relief, not joy, but a quiet, heavy sense of clarity. The drive home was slow. My hands gripped the wheel, not with anger, but with awareness. Every turn reminded me of all the times I had let her lies go unnoticed. Every red light a pause to reflect on how easily love can blind you. I didn't call her, didn't answer her frantic messages. I knew what she wanted: an apology, an explanation, a chance to twist the story, but I had nothing left to give. I had given everything before, and now it was time to take care of myself. The next day, I moved out, quietly, efficiently, leaving behind the life that had been both a sanctuary and a prison. I packed my things with calm precision, every item a reminder of a chapter that had ended, not in tragedy, but in truth. Friends checked in, but I didn't speak much. Words felt unnecessary. Actions mattered more than explanations, and my actions were clear. I was choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion. Weeks passed. She tried to reach me, tried to explain, to apologize, to justify. I didn't respond, and slowly I began to rebuild. My apartment was small, but every corner felt mine. The air felt lighter, my sleep deeper, my mornings quieter. I started running again, reading again, living again. The betrayal had hurt me, but it had also freed me. It had torn away the lies and left me with something rarer than love, truth, and the ability to move forward without compromise. Sometimes I think about her and I don't feel anger anymore. Just a distant recognition that she made her choices, and I made mine. The storm had passed. I didn't need revenge. Peace had found me first. And in that peace, I realized the most powerful karma isn't punishment, it's simply living well after the lies fall away. Months passed, and life began to settle into a rhythm I hadn't felt in years. I was quiet, focused on myself, on work, on mornings that started with sunlight instead of doubt. Then, the updates came not from her, not directly, but from mutual friends who knew pieces of the story. I learned that Hale, the man who had stolen moments with her behind my back, had ended things, publicly, embarrassingly. It seemed the truth, finally exposed, didn't just live in my hands, it had a way of catching up with everyone involved. Leona's world, once carefully constructed around charm and lies, began to crumble too. Friends who had once admired her turned away after the story surfaced in subtle ways at work and among our social circle. Her reputation, the one she'd so carefully curated, started to unravel. I didn't feel joy at that tit. It wasn't satisfaction or gloating, but there was a deep, quiet justice in it. Karma, it seemed, didn't need me to act. It had a way of unfolding on its own, patient and unrelenting. And I realized something important. I didn't need revenge to feel powerful, to feel alive, to feel whole. I didn't need to yell, to strike back, to humiliate her. Truth had done all of that for me. All I had to do was step out of the shadows and let it speak. The freedom I felt, the ability to wake up without anger twisting my stomach, the ability to make decisions for myself without fear or doubt, was proof enough that karma had its own timing. Sometimes I think about the smile she wore at that anniversary dinner, how it froze the moment the photos hit the table. That smile, that moment, became a turning point, not just for her, but for me. It was proof that betrayal carries its own weight, that lies eventually collapse, and that the universe has a strange, perfect way of balancing scales we can't see. I walk through life now differently, lighter, clearer. It's unafraid of love or trust, but cautious, wiser, and aware that some lessons are learned through pain. Justice, I discovered, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just living well, while the echoes of truth do all the work. Now, when I sit by my window in the quiet of the morning, watching the sun rise over the city, I think about how far I've come. The pain, the anger, the sleepless nights, they all feel like distant echoes, reminders of a storm I survived rather than a storm that defeated me. Betrayal cuts deeper than any blade, and trust, once broken, leaves scars that never fully fade. But it also teaches you lessons that no amount of happiness or comfort ever could. I've learned that love isn't about blind faith or ignoring red flags. Love is clarity. Love is seeing someone as they truly are and still choosing to stand by your values. I chose truth over illusion, and in doing so, I reclaimed not just my life, but my dignity. Every lie she told, every hidden glance, every stolen moment, it all became a mirror reflecting what I refused to accept. And when you face the truth head-on, there's a strange freedom in knowing that you no longer owe anyone your silence or your patience. Sometimes people ask me if I feel regret, if I wish I hadn't exposed her, if I wish I had tried harder to salvage what we had. I don't. There's no turning back to a life built on deceit. The exposure, the confrontation, the quiet aftermath, they weren't cruel. They were necessary. They reminded me that karma doesn't need hands to deliver justice. It just needs patience and truth. Now, I walk forward with my own story intact, carrying memories of love that was real and betrayal that was raw. I've learned to recognize people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. I've learned that peace is stronger than revenge, that living well is the most satisfying way to honor yourself after someone else tries to break you. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this: love deeply, trust wisely, and never let lies live in the shadows. Truth always finds a way, and when it does, the most powerful revenge isn't anger or cruelty. It's the life you build after the storm passes.